I came home early to surprise my wife. What I found upstairs destroyed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and family. After 25 years of marriage, I honestly thought we had it figured out. My wife, Amanda, and I had built a life I was proud of. We raised 4 wonderful kids together. Our oldest, Lily, had just turned 20 and was deep into her second year of college. Then came Mason, who was 18, and the twins, Jack and Grace, both just a few months shy of turning 16. We had our fair share of ups and downs like any couple, but nothing ever came close to what I'd soon face. Looking back, the red flags were there, but they were quiet, almost invisible. I always saw Amanda as the ideal partner, thoughtful, kind, the kind of mom who gave her all. Maybe that's exactly why I never expected anything to go wrong. I started noticing little differences, but I told myself they were nothing. She was dressing up more, putting in more effort with her appearance, especially when I wasn't around. She'd chuckle at texts but wouldn't say who they were from, just a friend from work. There wasn't anything concrete, just enough to make my stomach feel uneasy sometimes. Still, I kept telling myself I was overthinking. I can't even say exactly when things began to shift between us, but I felt it, this invisible wall growing. I figured it was just the wear and tear of a long marriage, all the responsibilities of parenting, the routines that dull the romance. I truly thought we were just in a lull, a rough patch that we'd eventually come out of. But now I realize how much I was clinging to trust, to the version of us I thought was still real. It never once crossed my mind that she might betray me. Not Amanda. Not in our home, not with our family. The subtle changes didn't stop, and while I took note, I kept minimizing them. Maybe I didn't want to face what they might mean. Amanda always had something to do, an errand, a meeting, some reason to be away. She started spending more time around Lily's boyfriend, Josh. At first it didn't seem strange. Josh had been around for a couple years and felt like one of us. They'd joke around, sometimes even text each other, but I didn't see it for what it was. One evening, while we were watching a movie, Mason looked over and said something that still echoes in my head. "Josh hangs out with Mom more than Lily these days." I laughed it off at the time, told him Josh was just close to the family. But if I'm honest, it unsettled me a little. I remember a flicker of jealousy or maybe just discomfort. I pushed it away though. Amanda was my wife. We had a history. We were solid, or so I believed. As time went on, our talks became less meaningful. We mostly discussed the kids or who was picking up groceries. The spark that once brought us close felt dim, but I chalked it up to life. Marriage gets quiet after a while, right? That's what I told myself over and over. I remember lying beside her one night, both of us glued to our phones, inches apart but worlds away. I tried to open up, to ask if she was okay, if something was weighing on her mind. Her answer was short. "I'm just tired. Work's been intense lately." I wanted to believe that. And for a while I did. We'd weathered so much together, it made sense to trust her, to assume this would pass. But that nagging doubt kept tapping at the back of my mind. Something was different. Her smiles seemed secret, like they weren't meant for me. She paid extra attention to her looks, and she often seemed distracted even when we were alone. I didn't realize it then, but those were the first signs, the hairline fractures in what I thought was a rock-solid marriage. I wish I had asked more. I wish I had been brave enough to see the truth when it was still just a whisper. But I wasn't ready. I held on to the hope that this was temporary, that we'd get back to where we used to be. Then came that Thursday. It was supposed to be a sweet surprise. I took the afternoon off, thinking we could have some time to ourselves before the kids came home. When I stepped through the front door, everything seemed almost too normal. Quiet, peaceful. I assumed Amanda might be upstairs, so I started heading that way. As I reached the staircase, something caught my eye. Josh's car was parked out front. That confused me. Lily was away at school. So why was her boyfriend here? I called out for Amanda. Nothing. The house stayed still. I walked up the stairs, and the faint scent of her favorite perfume hung in the air. That's when I heard it, muffled movement, a soft thump. My heart started pounding. My thoughts raced, leaping to dark, desperate places. Just as I reached for the bedroom door, something happened that I hadn't anticipated. The door swung open suddenly, and there stood Lily, our 20-year-old daughter, staring at me with wide, startled eyes and a bundle of paintbrushes clutched in her arms. "Dad!" she exclaimed, dropping one of the brushes in surprise. "What are you doing home?" I blinked, still trying to process the scene in front of me. I live here, remember?" I said, my eyes darting past her. My mind was spinning, trying to make sense of it all, especially the sight of Josh's car parked out front. Before I could ask anything else, Amanda appeared behind Lily. She was wearing an old apron smeared with streaks of paint, and her expression was more surprised than guilty. "You're home early," she said, trying to sound casual. "Lily wanted to surprise you with a painting for the twins' birthday. I guess the surprise is ruined now." I just stood there, thrown off completely. Moments earlier, I was convinced I was about to uncover something terrible. But instead, it seemed like a birthday project. My daughter and wife working together in secret, making something special for Jack and Grace. That's when Josh appeared behind me, carrying a box full of painting supplies. "Hey, Mr. D," he said, his voice sheepish. I was just lending a hand. I exhaled slowly, the weight in my chest easing a bit, though not entirely. "Looks like I walked in on something I wasn't supposed to see," I said, trying to smile. Amanda gave a light laugh and shook her head. "Next time we'll have to be better at hiding it." I chuckled along with them, but deep inside, something still didn't sit right. The scene had played out innocently enough, but that unsettled feeling didn't leave me. Even after the laughter faded and we all moved on with the day, I couldn't shake that sense of unease. Maybe it was just the recent strain between Amanda and me. Maybe it was the way Josh had started feeling almost too comfortable in our home. I wasn't sure, but the discomfort lingered. That night at dinner, the house was full of voices. Amanda and Lily were chatting excitedly about the painting. Josh laughed along, completely at ease. I tried to keep up, tried to feel present, but my mind was drifting, stuck in a loop of all the little signs I'd pushed aside. The subtle shift in Amanda's mood, her glow when Josh was around, their frequent time together that somehow seemed more than just friendly. Later, after we'd cleaned up and the kids had all gone to their rooms, I found Amanda alone in the kitchen. She was drying the last of the dishes when I walked in. "Hey," I said, leaning against the counter. "Can we talk for a minute?" She looked up, a bit surprised. "Of course. What's going on?" I hesitated, not even sure how to phrase what I'd been carrying around for months. "I don't know what's going on, Amanda. Lately, something feels off between us. You've seemed distant. I keep telling myself it's nothing, but..." "But what?" she asked, her brow furrowing. I took a breath. "It's about you and Josh." Her face went still for a second, and in that blink I saw something, shock, maybe guilt, maybe just disbelief. But it vanished quickly, replaced by a tight, bitter smile. "Josh?" she said, her tone rising with frustration. "You think something's going on between me and Lily's boyfriend?" A lump formed in my throat, but I held my ground. "I don't want to believe it. But the way you two act around each other, it's been getting to me. And I know it might be all in my head, but I can't ignore it anymore." She set the dish towel down and faced me. Her voice was soft but strained. "I can't believe you're even saying this. Josh is practically a kid. He's with our daughter. I would never." "I don't want to think this," I said, my voice rising just a little. "But something's been wrong between us for a while now. And I'm trying to understand what it is." For a long moment she just looked at me. Her eyes were filled with something I couldn't place. Then, without warning, they welled up with tears. She turned slightly, leaning against the counter for balance as the tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I didn't mean to make you feel this way. I've just been overwhelmed with everything. I never wanted it to get like this." I stood there frozen, not expecting her to break like that. "Amanda?" "I'm not cheating on you," Amanda said through her tears, her voice raw and trembling. "But I've been lost, really lost. I don't even recognize myself anymore. I don't know who I am if I'm not someone's wife or someone's mom. And I guess, spending time with Josh made me feel lighter, like I could breathe for a while. He's young, he doesn't carry all this weight I do. But it's not what you're thinking. I swear it's not." Her words landed with a force I didn't expect. I'd spent so long tangled up in my own fears of betrayal that I never stopped to wonder if maybe she was the one who felt like she was disappearing. Maybe somewhere in all this, I'd been so caught up trying to keep things together on the outside that I missed how broken she felt inside. We stood in the kitchen, the silence between us as heavy as the truth she'd just spoken. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me still ached from the suspicion, still unsure whether to believe her completely. But standing there, watching her fall apart in front of me, something inside me shifted. That hard edge of anger started to soften. I stepped closer, resting my hand gently on her shoulder. "Amanda, why didn't you say something earlier? I felt you slipping away and I didn't know what to do." She wiped at her cheeks and shook her head. "I didn't even know how to start that conversation. I wake up every day and it's like I'm stuck in this loop, meals, chores, responsibilities, and I'm just surviving. I didn't want to seem ungrateful or like I didn't love the life we built. I just didn't know how to say I felt like a stranger in my own skin." Hearing her say that nearly broke me. I'd been so consumed with trying to catch her doing something wrong that I never noticed how much she was hurting, how far she was drifting from herself. She wasn't running away from me, she was drowning and I hadn't seen it. I took a breath and looked her in the eye. Amanda, we're a team. If something's wrong, I want to be the one you talk to. I'm your husband. We're supposed to carry this stuff together, right? She nodded slowly, her expression softening. I know, and I'm sorry. I didn't mean to shut you out. I just didn't want to be one more thing you had to worry about. You're always juggling so much already. The kitchen felt like it was holding its breath. For the first time in a long time, we were finally being honest. No filters. No pretending. Just two people admitting they were both exhausted and didn't know how to fix it alone. But just as we were starting to talk, really talk, a loud crash came from the living room, snapping us both out of the moment. We ran out, our hearts pounding, and there they were, Jack and Grace standing like statues in the middle of the chaos. The coffee table was tipped over, a shattered vase lying in pieces across the floor. What happened? I asked, trying to stay calm even as my nerves were still raw from everything else. It was an accident, Jack mumbled. We were just messing around and it kinda got out of hand. In another moment I might have scolded them. But all I could do was stare at the broken glass, the ruined table. It felt like a symbol of everything, our family, our marriage, things that looked fine from a distance but were quietly falling apart. Amanda crouched down to start picking up the glass. It's okay, she said gently. Let's clean it up. But as I watched her there, knees to the ground, cleaning yet another mess like she always did, it hit me. That's what we'd both been doing for so long, cleaning, covering, coping, without ever really addressing the damage underneath. We can't keep patching things up like this, I murmured almost to myself. She looked up at me and for the first time, I saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. She nodded as if she knew exactly what I meant. After the twins helped clean up the glass, they quietly slipped off to their rooms, leaving Amanda and me alone in the now spotless living room. But no amount of tidying could erase the mess that had grown between us. The silence between us still felt heavy, charged with all the things we hadn't said and all the truths we'd barely begun to face. Amanda, I said, my voice low and steady, we can't just pretend this is all fine. This isn't just about broken furniture or a rough couple of months. There's something deeper here. I can see how much you're hurting, and I'm hurting too. She looked at me, her eyes red and puffy from crying earlier, but she didn't say a word. I took a breath and continued, even though my chest tightened with every word. I still don't know what to make of everything with you and Josh. You keep saying there's nothing going on, but the way you've been with him, it's been hard for me to ignore. It's not just about you and me growing apart. It's how you've changed around him. Her expression twisted with emotion. She closed her eyes and let out a long breath. I've already told you, I haven't done anything with Josh. I swear to you nothing happened. But I've been so lost lately. Being around him, someone so full of life and not weighed down by everything, reminded me of who I used to be. It was foolish, I see that now. But it was never more than that. I wanted to take her at her word, but the doubt was still there, quietly lodged in the back of my mind. You have to understand how hard it is for me to just accept that. I want to believe you. But I can't help feeling like there's more that you're not saying. She rubbed her forehead with both hands, clearly exhausted. You're right, she said finally. There is more. But it's not about Josh. It's about me, how I felt for a long time. I've been unhappy, but I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to make things worse. Those words hit like a gut punch. Amanda, not telling me? That's what hurts the most. We've been married for 25 years. How did we get to a place where you felt like you couldn't come to me? Her shoulders sagged as she sat down on the edge of the couch, suddenly looking small and fragile in a way I hadn't seen before. Because I didn't know how to fix any of it. I didn't know how to fix me. I sat beside her, the distance between us both physical and emotional. I'd been so wrapped up in my fear that she might have betrayed me, I hadn't considered that maybe she was simply lost, drifting, disconnected, unsure of her place in the life we built. So, what now? I asked quietly, unsure of what I even wanted to hear. She looked over at me, her eyes unsure. I don't know. But I don't want to give up, not if there's still something left to hold on to. I wanted to tell her that we could make it, that we could find our way back. But I didn't know if that was true. The cracks in our relationship weren't just about Josh. They were about all the years we'd avoided the deeper conversations, all the slow changes we let slide. We have to stop hiding from it, I said more to myself than her. If we're going to try, we have to be real this time. About everything. She nodded, but the look in her eyes told me she was just as uncertain as I was. Were we already too far gone? A week later, on a Tuesday, I came home earlier than usual. I'd hoped for a quiet hour before the twins got back from school. Lily and Mason were away at college, so the house should have been empty, just Amanda and me. I figured maybe we could sit together, talk some more, maybe start trying to patch things up. But as I walked in, something immediately felt off. Josh's car was parked a little ways down the street, not in our driveway, which made it feel almost like he didn't want to be seen. A red flag waved in my chest and I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was helping Amanda with something again. But that nagging feeling in my gut started to claw its way back. The house was too quiet. No music, no kitchen noise, just stillness. As I made my way toward the stairs, I heard faint noises, low voices, footsteps. My heart began to thud. I moved slowly, each step up the staircase feeling heavier than the last. The air felt tighter, like the house itself was holding something in. The door to our bedroom was cracked open. I pushed it the rest of the way. And there they were. When I pushed that door open, time seemed to stop. There she was, Amanda, the woman I'd spent the last 25 years of my life with, lying in our bed with Josh, my daughter's boyfriend. They were completely lost in each other, wrapped up in a moment they should never have shared, blind to the world outside that room. It felt like a punch straight to my chest. My heart stopped. My lungs forgot how to breathe. For a second, they didn't even realize I was there. I stood frozen in the doorway, watching the unthinkable unfold, my brain struggling to process what my eyes couldn't deny. Amanda and Josh, entwined in a way I could never unsee. That image carved itself into my mind like a scar. Then Amanda's head turned and she saw me. Her eyes went wide with panic. She bolted upright, scrambling to pull a sheet around her, her mouth moving but the words coming out in pieces. Josh didn't say anything. He just froze, pale and stunned, like a kid caught red-handed with no idea what to do. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. All I could hear was the sound of my heart thundering in my ears. "Aaron," Amanda whispered, her voice shaking. I can explain." "Explain?" I finally managed to say, my voice hoarse and cracking. "What could you possibly say right now that would make this better?" Josh still hadn't moved, hadn't said a single word. He just stood there like he was hoping the floor would open up and swallow him whole. "How long?" I asked, trembling from head to toe. "How long has this been going on?" Amanda started crying, clutching the sheet tighter around herself. "It's not what you think. I never meant for this to happen." That made me laugh. A cold, bitter sound I didn't even recognize as my own. "Not what I think. Amanda, I just caught you in bed with our daughter's boyfriend. What exactly do you think I'm supposed to think?" The rage that surged through me was suffocating, but under it was something deeper, something hollow and aching. It wasn't just anger. It was grief. This wasn't some stranger. This was my wife. The woman I thought I knew. The woman I trusted with everything. I turned to Josh, my voice low and unsteady. "You. Now." He hesitated like he wanted to say something, but one look from me and he knew better. He grabbed his clothes in silence and slipped past me, disappearing down the hallway. I didn't watch him leave. I couldn't. Now it was just me and Amanda. And the wreckage between us. I stood there, my hands shaking, trying to hold it together. "I can't even look at you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "After everything, after 25 years, this is what you chose?" I didn't wait for her to respond. I couldn't bear to hear another excuse or see more tears. I turned and walked out of the room, each step like dragging 1,000 pounds behind me. Everything we'd built, our marriage, our family, our home, it all felt like it had been set on fire. I don't remember getting downstairs. My body was moving, but my mind was somewhere else, caught between rage and heartbreak. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I couldn't stay there. Not with that image burned into my memory. Not with the walls closing in around me. I got in the car and slammed the door, just trying to catch my breath. But it didn't help. The betrayal was everywhere. Amanda, Josh, and the thought of Lily, my daughter, finding out, made me feel sick. I drove without direction, just letting the road take me anywhere that wasn't home. My grip on the wheel was so tight my fingers went numb. Anger churned in my gut, but it was tangled with disbelief, with sorrow, with the kind of pain you don't have words for. How could she do this? After everything we'd faced together, how could she throw it all away for this? Eventually, I pulled into a parking lot I didn't recognize. The engine idled as I stared blankly ahead, numb and empty. The world outside the windshield felt distant, almost unreal. At some point, my phone buzzed. I didn't want to look. But curiosity, or maybe just habit, made me glance down. Amanda's name lit up the screen. One message. "I'm sorry. Please come home so we can talk." I stared at the words, not sure if I wanted to scream or cry or throw the phone into the street. Talk. After what I'd just seen. She said she was sorry. But right now, I didn't even know if that word meant anything anymore. Talk. That was the word Amanda sent me, like we could just sit down and chat over coffee. After what I'd seen. After watching her betray me in the most personal way possible? I couldn't believe she had the nerve to even ask. What was left to talk about? But as much as I wanted to disappear, to never hear her voice again, I knew I couldn't avoid this forever. We had kids. A whole life tangled together. There was no clean break from something like this, not when so much of it still lived under one roof. I wasn't ready to see her face. Not yet. I needed time. I needed space. So I texted her back, I need space. Don't contact me right now. I'll come home when I'm ready. As soon as I hit send, I dropped the phone onto the passenger seat and rested my head against the steering wheel. My chest rose and fell with a long, shaky breath. What now? It felt like every piece of my life had cracked open. Amanda wasn't just my wife, she was part of everything I'd built over the past 25 years. And Josh? He wasn't some nameless affair. He was Lily's boyfriend. He had eaten dinner at our table, sat on our couch, laughed with our kids. How in the world was I supposed to tell my daughter? It wasn't just the marriage breaking, it was the family. And the fallout was going to hit everyone, especially the ones who didn't deserve it. I sat in that parking lot for hours, thoughts swirling in every direction. I kept asking myself the same questions on repeat. How long had this been going on? Why didn't I see it? What signs did I ignore? Could I have stopped it? Could I ever forgive her? And the truth? I didn't have an answer to any of it. Eventually, I headed back to the house, not because I wanted to talk but because I needed a plan. I needed clarity. The moment I pulled into the driveway, the house looked just like it always had, but it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt cold, different, empty. I stepped inside quietly, hoping to avoid her. But as I closed the door, I saw her. Amanda was sitting on the couch, her face streaked with dried tears, her hands clenched together like she was holding herself together with sheer will. "Aaron," she said softly, her voice almost breaking. "Please, can we just talk?" I stood there, staring at her, this woman I had loved for half my life, and all I could see was the moment everything fell apart. "Not tonight," I said, my tone flat and cold. "We'll talk. But not now." She nodded barely and whispered, "I'm so sorry. I never meant to hurt you." I turned away, jaw clenched so tightly it hurt. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My rage was still too raw, and I was afraid if I opened my mouth I wouldn't stop. I went upstairs and closed the door to the guest room behind me. She stayed downstairs crying alone. But this wasn't something that tears could wash away. At first I thought that night would be the lowest point, that maybe with time I'd come to believe her, that it had been a moment of weakness, that it wasn't physical for long, that maybe we could try to rebuild what we'd lost. But something inside me wouldn't settle. That gnawing feeling of doubt still lingered. I wanted to believe her, but I couldn't. Not fully. And as much as I wanted to move on, I felt like the story wasn't over. And it wasn't. A few days passed. I kept my distance, stayed late at work, slept in the guest room. We hadn't said a word to the kids. Lily was still away at school. Josh hadn't come by, or so I thought. But I never let my guard down completely. Then came that afternoon. The house was supposed to be empty. The twins were still at school. Amanda thought I was at work. But I had this gut feeling, like something was off. Something told me to go home. I parked down the block this time. More cautious. More deliberate. And there it was again, Josh's car. The sight of it twisted my stomach in knots. I felt the heat rise in my chest, my fists tightening before I even made it to the porch. How could he be back here? How could she let him back? I unlocked the door and stepped in, barely making a sound. The house greeted me with that same eerie stillness. And I knew. I moved slowly, silently toward the stairs. My legs were heavy. My heart thudded in my chest, louder than my footsteps. And as I climbed, I could hear them. Voices. Movement. Each step made the truth more real. And this time I didn't hesitate. As I reached the top of the stairs, I heard them again. Not whispers. Not just conversation. Laughter. Movement. The unmistakable rhythm of something intimate. Familiar. Too familiar. My stomach twisted. My fists clenched. And in that moment, every doubt I'd tried to smother came roaring back. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't confusion. They were doing it again. In my home. In our bed. Without thinking, I shoved the door open. There they were. Just like before. Amanda and Josh wrapped in each other like nothing had changed. As if I hadn't caught them once already. As if my pain, my rage, the damage they'd already done, it all meant nothing. This time I didn't freeze. "Get out!" I shouted, the words ripping from my throat, my entire body shaking with fury. They jumped, startled and wide-eyed. Amanda gasped, yanking a blanket over herself. Josh looked like he'd been shot, pale, stunned, scrambling. "You've got 5 seconds, I growled, stepping into the room. "Get out of this house or I'll make you regret staying." Amanda tried to speak, her voice shaking. "Aaron, please, I can explain." Explain? I cut her off, my voice breaking with rage. "Explain what? How you lied to my face. How you promised it was over. You looked me in the eye and swore. And now I find you again, with him?" Josh was already grabbing at his clothes, practically tripping over himself. He didn't even try to speak. He knew better. "Get out," I said again, lower this time but no less dangerous. "Now." Amanda was crying by then, a choked, desperate sob. "I didn't mean for this to happen again. I don't know what's wrong with me." I laughed, hollow and bitter. "You don't know what's wrong with you? You betrayed everything we built. You betrayed our daughter. And for what? For him? Don't give me excuses. You're not confused, Amanda. You're selfish." She tried again but I was done listening. "Save your breath. I've heard enough lies." Josh, fully dressed now, bolted out the door like his life depended on it. Amanda made a move to follow but I stepped in her way. "You're leaving too," I said, cold and final. "This is over. You don't get to stay here, not after this." Her eyes widened, like she hadn't expected I'd go that far. "Aaron, no. Please, we can talk. I'll do anything." "You had your chance," I snapped. "And you chose him. Twice. So now you can live with that." I let go of her arm and turned away, already walking out of the room. I didn't care about the crying behind me anymore. I didn't care about her apologies. That woman, my wife, was gone. Whatever we were, whatever we had, it ended the second she chose to betray not just me but our entire family. Downstairs, I opened the front door without looking back. "Go," I said. Amanda stood in the doorway for a second, tears streaking her face, lips trembling like she still had something to say. But before she could speak, I slammed the door shut. The silence afterward was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. And for the first time in weeks, maybe even months, I felt something close to clarity. The truth had come out. I had faced it. And now it was time to start over. The days that followed were a blur. I filed for divorce almost immediately. No counseling. No long discussions. I was done. Amanda didn't fight me. She barely spoke. Deep down, I think she knew she had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. But the hardest part wasn't the paperwork. It wasn't the silence between us. It was the kids, especially Lily. How do you look your daughter in the eye and tell her the person she trusted, the one she loved, had slept with her mother? You don't. I made a decision, a painful one. I would spare them that truth. I would carry the weight, take the hit, lie if I had to. Because the truth would destroy them in a way I couldn't bear to watch. One evening after dinner, I gathered them in the living room. Lily had come home for the weekend, Noah was back from a friend's house, and the twins had just finished their homework. We hadn't all been in the same room in weeks. And I knew, this was the moment. Amanda wasn't there. She had moved into an apartment across town, close enough to see the kids but far enough to give me space. We'd agreed, I would be the one to tell them. Emma was the first to speak. "Dad? What's going on?" I looked at each of them. Their faces, so full of innocence, confusion, fear. My heart cracked under the weight of what I was about to say. "There's something I need to tell you," I said slowly. "It's about your mom and me." They were silent, waiting. "We're getting a divorce." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Lily gasped. Noah's eyes dropped to the floor. Jack looked at Grace, confused. "Why?" Noah asked, his voice small, like he was afraid of the answer. This was it. The moment I'd dreaded, the one I had practiced in my head 100 different ways, but nothing could have prepared me for the look in my kids' eyes. I wanted so badly to tell them the truth, to lay bare the depth of the betrayal. But I couldn't. I couldn't do that to them. "It's no one's fault," I said, my voice tight, struggling to stay steady. "Sometimes people just grow apart. Your mom and I, we've been together a long time. And we realized that we're no longer the same people we were when we first fell in love. We're better off going our separate ways." The words felt foreign. False. But it was the kindest version of the truth I could offer them. They didn't need to know what their mother had done. They didn't need to carry that weight. Emma's eyes filled instantly with tears. But I thought love was supposed to mean something. You always said it was the most important thing. I nodded slowly, swallowing the lump in my throat. It is. And it always will be. But sometimes, love changes. And your mom and I both agreed that this is what's best, for us and for you. Olivia didn't speak. She just stared at the floor, still and silent. I could feel the hurt radiating off her, and my heart broke all over again. The irony was unbearable. Of all the people to suffer the most, it would be her. And she had no idea what had really happened. I'm sorry, I said gently. I wish I had better answers. But there's one thing I need you all to remember. We love you. Both of us. That hasn't changed and it never will. The room stayed quiet for a long time. Noah blinked away tears, nodding, trying his best to be strong. The twins held hands, whispering to each other. And Olivia, she just kept staring. Her silence said more than any words ever could. Eventually, Ethan looked up and asked the question I knew was coming. Are we still gonna see Mom? Yeah, I said softly. Of course. She's still your mom. She'll always be part of your lives. We'll figure out the details soon. One by one they left the room, Noah first, then the twins and finally Olivia. She didn't say anything. Just walked upstairs slowly, a trail of quiet pain in her wake. And when the room was empty, I sat there alone, feeling the weight of what I'd just done settle deep in my chest. I told myself I had done the right thing, that sparing them the truth was an act of protection. But it didn't feel noble. It felt like betrayal, just of a different kind. The divorce moved quickly after that. No courtroom battles, no drawn-out fights, just paperwork and silence. Amanda didn't protest. She barely said a word. Part of me believed she knew she'd lost everything already. I thought that was it. I thought that catching her with Josh, ending the marriage, protecting the kids, that was the bottom. The worst of it. But I was wrong. A few weeks after the divorce was finalized, I got a message out of nowhere from an old friend, Brian. We hadn't really spoken in years. Used to hang out back when life was simpler. He worked at a local gym now. I figured he was just reaching out to check in, maybe heard about the divorce. But his message was short. Uneasy. Hey Aaron. We need to talk. It's about Amanda. It hit me like a punch to the stomach. I didn't reply right away. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. But curiosity, or maybe just that lingering hope that there was something salvageable, pushed me to agree to meet him the next day. We met at a coffee shop not far from where we used to hang out in our 20s. He looked tense, nervous, like someone about to drop a bomb. When he sat down, he didn't waste time. I don't know if I should even be telling you this, Brian said, rubbing the back of his neck. But I feel like you deserve to know. I stared at him, bracing myself. She's been coming to my gym for a while now, about a year or so, he said. And I've seen things. Heard things. Aaron, it wasn't just Josh. My stomach dropped. What are you saying? He leaned in, voice low. I mean, there were others. Young guys. At least 4, maybe more. Guys in their 20s. I've seen her leave with them. She was pretty open about it, maybe too open. Like she wasn't even hiding it. The words hit me like a freight train. I could feel my body tighten, hands gripping the edge of the table like I needed to hold on to something real. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Brian leaned across the table, lowering his voice like he was revealing state secrets. I didn't want to get in the middle of anything, he said. But after everything I've heard, I couldn't keep quiet anymore. The first time I noticed something off was almost a year ago. She was flirting with one of the young trainers, he's maybe 22. I thought it was just playful at first, but then I saw them leave together. He paused, eyes on mine, gauging my reaction. It wasn't just him, he went on. Over the past several months there were others. Some were regulars at the gym, a few I'd never seen before. All young. Early 20s. And she wasn't being subtle. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but it kept happening. And I thought you should know. I stared at him, trying to wrap my head around what he was saying. My brain couldn't keep up with the storm that was suddenly raging inside me. This wasn't about Josh anymore. That was just the surface. The real betrayal went deeper, so much deeper. A year. At least a year. With multiple men. All while I was sleeping next to her, raising our kids with her, holding on to the belief that we were just hitting a rough patch. I felt the air leave my lungs. Why didn't you tell me? I asked quietly, the words dry in my throat. Brian looked down at the table. I didn't know how. I told myself it wasn't my business. I thought maybe you knew, or maybe she'd stop. But when I heard about the divorce and about Josh, I knew I couldn't keep this from you anymore. I nodded slowly, my hands trembling as they rested on the table. I didn't even know what to feel anymore. Rage? Shock? Embarrassment? No, it was grief. Grief for a version of my life that never actually existed. Thanks for telling me, I said eventually, though the words felt far away. We parted ways and I drove home in silence, the hum of the engine the only sound keeping me grounded. I kept seeing her face, remembering her saying she didn't know what was wrong with her, swearing it was just Josh crying over a mistake. And now I saw it for what it really was, a lie carefully rehearsed, masked behind tears. I sat down on the couch when I got home and buried my face in my hands. The weight of it all crashed down on me. I'd been living with a stranger. I'd been protecting a truth that didn't deserve protection. I had lied to my kids to preserve a version of their mother that didn't exist anymore. Maybe never did. There was a moment where all I wanted to do was scream. Throw something. Tear down every photo, every memory, everything that still made this house feel like our house. But I didn't. I sat there in silence, letting it all wash over me. And then something strange happened. As the days passed, the weight didn't feel as suffocating. The anger began to lose its grip. The pain dulled, not because I forgot, but because I had finally stopped waiting for her to make it right. I stopped needing answers. I stopped needing closure. I didn't talk to Amanda after that. No calls. No texts. I let her live her life with whatever choices she wanted to make. I didn't ask questions. I didn't dig anymore. She was out of my life. And I kept her out. My focus became the kids, the one piece of this shattered picture that still mattered. They were my reason. My anchor. I made a promise to myself that I'd show up for them in every way she hadn't. I'd be honest with them, present with them. I'd rebuild this home not with her but for them. And slowly, piece by piece, I started to rebuild me too.